James, and to the rest of the UETN team for getting us all connected. I'd like to welcome you out to this board, this UETN board meeting on this beautiful spring day on December 1st. Hope that you are enjoying the weather wherever you're at. You're probably enjoying it more if you're a golfer rather than a skier, but glad that you're able to join. Denise, according to my notes, we are well beyond having a quorum, so I think we are good as far as by our board members. So thank you all for joining this morning and taking the time. We'd like to welcome any visitors and guests who are connecting or who are viewing this via YouTube. We certainly welcome you and appreciate you joining us. We're going to launch right into our meeting agenda. The first item of business. We actually have two. We actually have two meeting notes that need approval, both for the August 13th board meeting as well as the September 15th. You have those meeting notes as part of the agenda. I'd be happy to entertain a motion to approve both the August 13th and September 15th meeting notes.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All approved, please raise your hand. And any opposed? Thank you. Those minutes and notes stand approved. We're going to move into our action item portion of our meeting now. We actually, the first item of action is we have two new appointments to the UTN Advisory Council, Michael Foster and Stephen Salter. And I'd like to give Matt a chance. You have a brief write-up of each individual as part of the agenda notes. But Matt, is there anything that you would like to add before the board considers these two names?
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I won't read their bios. They're in your agenda, but I do want to thank Preston Marks at Uinta Basin Healthcare and Brenda Bartholomew at Gunnison Valley Hospital. They had both served on the board for a long time and deserved a break. And so we're happy to get Mike Foster and Stephen Salter. Mike's with Moab Regional Hospital. He's the IT director. And similar, Stephen Salter is the IT director at Gunnison. So both rural hospitals, they're very important to their communities and our network. So we look forward to having them serve on the advisory council.
Great. Thank you, Matt. So the proposal, the action item before the board is to approve Michael Foster and Stephen Salter as new members of the UTN Advisory Council. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Hey, any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Great, Matt, we are excited to have these two individuals become part of the advisory council.
Thank you.
Yep. The next action item is you have a list of dates for 2022 for our proposed board meetings: February 11th, April 8th, June 10th, August 12th, October 14th, and December 7th. Although it's not written on the agenda, I just would like you to put a mental parentheses next to August 12th. That's when I'd like to propose that we yet again set a goal of having an in-person board retreat That will be the goal. So if you could just kind of take a mental note that we would be gearing towards the end of summer, that August 12th so on your calendars, if you could maybe consider blocking that whole day out as a possible day for a full day board retreat. But the other dates are listed there. Before we put it up for a vote, any questions, any concerns about the dates as they've been proposed? Any conflicts? Okay. Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion. This is just for the UETN board meeting. You have the proposed council dates for both of our councils. We are not voting on those. Those dates are simply set and will be taken care of by each of the councils. So this vote right now is just for the board meetings in 2022. So I'll entertain a motion to approve those dates.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? I would like to insert thank you. That'll pass, and please note those dates on your calendar. I would like to pause right here and just get some feedback from members of the board. I know I would like to eventually, as soon as possible, make my way back down to the UETN headquarters to actually be in person for these meetings. I'm considering perhaps even the February meeting, depending on how things are going. We, of course, would never lose the option of board members being able to connect remotely. That's been a tradition for this board for as long as I've been a part and associated with the board. So there would never be any pressure for board members to be in person. There would always be a remote option. However, I would like to consider opening up the possibility of actually meeting. Now, I understand and appreciate that this also could be impacted by any institutional policies at the University of Utah when it comes to COVID, as well as UETN. But just wanted to get your feedback. If any members of the board would like to share. I'm thinking that we might want to open things back up for in-person for those who would like to participate. What are your thoughts?
I would certainly support having some in-person meetings, being mindful of those who are farther away. Perhaps if we schedule a certain number of them, perhaps half of them or every other one, to be in person. They may or may not be able to make the trip, but that might help to be conducive to making connections.
Thank you, Jared. I think that what we have done in the past is, because we've always had a remote option, it has always just been a matter of those who can attend in person and want to do, those who need to connect remotely can. I think we would follow that same precedence. Other thoughts? I'm sure masks, if you're comfortable with wearing masks, that would certainly happen also. I saw here, Pat.
Yeah, Chair. Thank you for this conversation. I support the return, a hybrid model. The one thing that I would caution is for us not to lose our lessons learned along the way, where before we had hybrid models of those that could attend and those that were in person. And it seemed like that for those that could attend was an aside, it was an afterthought. And so although that they were there, we could see them in the meetings, really being cognizant of the fact of how we engage with those that are hybrid or that are online. Maybe having someone be really we have someone in the meeting, but then someone really monitoring those that are online so that we make sure that they're more included, which is what's happening now. And I just wanted to throw that out there, that we make a concerted effort, more diligent in our efforts to be able to be more inclusive of those really great hybrid and remote learning practices that we've learned over time.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Other thoughts?
Robert, I think it depends on, the new variant. It's kind of up in the air a little bit. We'll have to see how that develops. If that becomes a major threat, it probably wouldn't be a good idea to come together. But if it works out that it's not as big a threat and that the vaccine seems to be able to cover that, then maybe we ought to consider that. But I think it'd be wonderful to get back together. We just need to be cautious about what the new atmosphere and what the new variant's going to bring to us in this next few weeks.
Okay. Well, what I would propose then to the board is we will, of course, we now have our next meeting scheduled for February 11th. We would wait. I would work with the UETN leadership team, of course, observing what's going on with COVID. Again, institutional policies that might impact us, and then make a decision around the second half of January, towards the beginning of February. If an in-person option would be available, we would then let board members know. For anyone that would like to, again, it would not be a requirement. We would maintain the remote option. And Patty, thank you very much. It's a great opportunity for us to actually learn some things from this COVID experience. So certainly no pressure to come in person. We'll make that decision in January and then let members of the board to know if an in-person option is appropriate and will be available. Okay, great. We will now, those are our action items for today. So we're going to move into the discussion portion of our meeting now, and we're going to start with a funding update from Ray.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen. Okay, it's actually, if you go down to the executive director report, that's where the legislative funding request is. We worked together with the board and staff on this one-page legislative funding request, and you gave us some suggestions. You asked us to make some modifications. So we've done that, we put it together, and this is the 2023 legislative funding request. The priorities, the first priority is, as identified by the board, it was growth and operations. And if you look at either what we've written, or if you look at the chart over here, it shows what that entails. We're looking at new circuits, sites, and backbone upgrades. That's always something that we need to have as a top priority, so that those new locations are connected. And that would be an ongoing funding request of $765,000. One-time costs of connecting those locations would be $300,000. So it's a little over 1 million, 1.06 million for that part of growth and operations. The second piece of the growth and operations has to do with our software contracts. Those institutions have increased number of staff members that we have licensing for. We also have increased enrollment of students, and most of our license fees are based on number of users. And so as those numbers go up, so do the costs. And so we're looking at that growth being $900,000, an ongoing cost on that. The content filtering, there's again an increased need for filtering as students are taking devices home, as we're seeing greater utilization of technology. It's important that we have appropriate filtering. We're at the end of contract, and we're looking at there would be an increased cost. And so filtering is our request for ongoing funding for filtering is $500,000. And then equipment replacement, we have, industry standard would be replacing technology equipment by and large every 3 years, doing a refresh. We've never been able to get the funding to that level. We're on a 7-year replacement cycle. And so for that 7-year replacement cycle, we would need to have $3 million to be able to meet that need. So for growth, and that is the equipment replacement. So the number one priority again is growth and operations for a total of almost $5.5 million. The second priority that you've identified is the infrastructure. That would be the backbone, district upgrades, advanced services, and that would be a one-time cost of $2.5 million. So the first two priorities, growth and operations and infrastructure, it's a request for state funding for that. The third priority then would be our ARPA application that has gone through the governor's office. And that consists of multiple items as well. Network infrastructure, employee safety, changes that we haven't been able to make at our facility as far as cleanliness, countertops, dividers, just a lot of things that would need to be done. Telehealth services, working with nurses and providing them with telehealth kits. Can you imagine being the school nurse of San Juan, living in Blanding, and getting a call that you need to go out to Navajo Mountain? These telehealth kits have been very valuable, and we would like to see those kits for all schools. Then the infrastructure supporting research and education. We work closely with our higher ed institutions, and we provide the equipment, a lot of technical support for those researchers. And so that would be another cost. So the total request that we've had for the ARPA is $41.3 million for that. Now, we don't know the results of our request yet, but we received an invite to attend the governor's budget review on December the 6th. That's for all state agencies that have an opportunity to sit down with the governor and review what he is recommending for his budget proposal. And so on the 6th, we'll get a sneak peek. And then on the 7th, that should be released publicly. Brittany, is that correct? Is it going to be made public on the 7th?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So we will let you know. We'll send out an email, let you know what the results are of the ARPA request. Well, any of the governor's recommendations for us. So those are the three. Again, it's growth, operations, infrastructure, and then our ARPA request. This is our latest infrastructure map. And it continues to amaze me the progress that we're able to make. And we've been, very fortunate recently to have additional funds available to build out the network so that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of our stakeholders. We want our stakeholders to do what they do best, and that's teaching and educating. And they don't need to worry about, do they have enough bandwidth? That's what we need to be focused on. One area that always, you see the University of Utah and the downtown data center where hopefully can't get my arrow. There we go, right in that area. it wasn't that long ago that was the only 100 gig connection, was from downtown data center up to the university. And now look and see everything that we've been able to accomplish. We're also working with the Internet 2, and what we've done with them is we'll be working with them on what's called the next generation infrastructure platform. And that's taking our network and going from the 100 gig up to the 200. And we will be one of the very first networks in the country to move to the 400 gigabit per second circuits. So we'll be shortly, we'll be announcing that we are a 400 gig network. And that's an incredible accomplishment in such a short period of time. I guess there's a third page to this handout. Instead of a back-to-back, we've got one additional page. And these are the locations. We always want our legislators to see the locations, the new connections that we're making. The bottom one here for fiscal year 2022, we didn't receive any funding to connect these locations. And I, it was a change of committee, a lot of different changes going on. And so we have ongoing circuit charges for these locations, and we need to be able to pay those circuit costs. We used our emergency reserve fund to get these locations connected, but now we need to have the funding to pay for those ongoing monthly charges for those circuits. And so that's why we're asking for those. There are about 20 of those. And then there's, I believe, 10, there's 14 of those. And then there are 10 new that will be added. And that's part of our request for 2023. And we're including a request for the one-time costs as well as the ongoing costs for that. So that's what that page is right there. So that's the legislative funding request as you ask us to make those changes. Are there any questions or comments that you may have regarding what I just shared with you?
Ray, I have a question. I think it's great that you're taking advantage of the ARPA federal grant and monies that way. Have you, with that $41 million, have you considered what that's going to do for your ongoing operational costs in future years?
Yeah, that's been a question with the CARES Act. It's been a question, with the ARPA funds as well. And we're making sure that we're not committing ourselves to things that are going to push us over the edge when that funding is spent. So we've been, through the application process, and as we have worked with our stakeholders, they are well aware that the funding that they are receiving is not unlimited and it doesn't go on forever. So we have been careful in that regard. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
I've got one. I just wanted to, is that okay, Chair, if I speak? Yeah. Okay. I just have two things. One, thanks for speaking to that last question, because that fiscal cliff is real. And we have a lot of people that are worried about that fiscal cliff once that occurs. And so thanks for speaking to it, because that's the question that I've heard from many of our legislators who are very well-meaning when they're saying, for example, when we have infrastructure and we have ARPA, the question that will undoubtedly be asked is, why can't those infrastructure costs be used with some sort of ESSER relief funding in some way, or individual districts or whatnot? So just being prepared for that question is, why is that a separate ask, and is there another way of paying for it? So I know that that's going to probably, Brittany, I'm not sure how you, if you think that's probably going to be asked as well. But then second, if you scroll to that infrastructure backbone map, I just have to say yet again, and I know I've said this before, this map is the most beautiful thing ever that speaks to access. It speaks to opportunity. It speaks to the resources of people money, funding, time, energy, effort, communities. When we talk about a graphic that is worth 1,000 words, this graphic is millions of words put together. And I just hope everyone appreciates the simplicity of this, but the depth of what it took to get there.
Thanks, Patty.
Ray, if I might just ask a question I noticed on the map that there are some of our institutions that are not showing on there. Is that because they are served through some of those other hubs or channels?
Can you give me an example?
We have Ogden Weaver Technical College, Tooele Southwest, Snow's Richfield campus. I don't know, there might be a couple others, but
Yeah, that's a good point. We really probably should look at that and see about adding those. I know as we get, we put the school districts on here, but we don't put individual schools. But your institutions are more than an individual school. So that's a good point, Jared, that we need to look at.
Whatever seems appropriate. You've got some of them on there, but not others, and I just wasn't sure if there was a criteria there.
Good point. What we have for most of the higher ed institutions, those are the POPs or their disaggregation points, and it really shows the main backbone goes to those locations. From there, it goes out to the school district offices, and then from the district offices, it then goes out to each individual school.
Okay, that's great.
And that's what you're seeing there. I think all of those have kind of a black. They're in black, and that's what those are.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, would you like me to step down now, or do you want me to go into the executive director's report?
We have a couple other discussion items
Okay.
before you go into your report, but thank you, Ray. And I would just take this opportunity to just remind members of the board, this is the last meeting that we will have before the legislative session begins. Your support of the UETN request and your representation of this request is always appreciated with your local legislators. And then Ray, once again, as a board, will ask you to please let us know and keep us posted as to meetings during the legislative session where board participation, board support, where that would be appreciated and that would be appropriate to please let us know. Okay, we will move on to our next discussion item, which is the annual digital resources report, and Laura will take this.
Thanks. This will be very brief. Some of you may recall there was a new law passed at the last legislative session requiring us to report on the digital resources that we license for education for the state for K-12 education. So you have in your materials a copy of the report that was sent to the Education Interim Committee of the legislature. It's an annual report. This first period was just May when the statute took effect to the end of November, and then we'll continue to do that annually. You'll see in the document there have been no activities that are described in the law. So it was a very brief report, but we wanted to make sure you as board members were aware of it. That's all.
Hey, thank you. Any questions for Laura about that report?
Robert, I have just a couple quick questions. I continue to hear from groups that are monitoring EBSCO and our other digital libraries, looking for ways that students might get to things that are inappropriate. I noticed in the report that we had no findings or no incidents reported of any kind. And I just was wondering if we have any concerns with the legislation on this in terms of ways students may be getting around that and not getting reported.
I will look to Laura and Ray.
Ray, do you want to take that one or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Laura. That's fine.
So we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the agenda, David. One of the big things that we've noticed is, there's a difference between the K-12 databases that are accessed through the school or through a device from the school that has school filtering, and the ones that are accessed through the public library or academic libraries directly in the home. So I'm referring specifically to the K-12 services. We haven't had reports of any of those instances. And yes, it's something that we continue to monitor. And later in the agenda, I'll share one of the monitoring reports that we have to show that.
Okay,
Of
thank you very
course,
much.
Sure. And of course, you're a district leader. So anything that you hear that you think we should be aware of, we definitely want to hear.
Certainly.
Any other questions or comments about the digital resources report? Okay, we'll go on to our next discussion item. Laura will introduce this, but this next part will be looking for board member input. This is a first reading for this board of a proposed draft policy. And Laura, if you would please introduce, and then I will lead a discussion with the board on this new draft policy.
Sounds great. And as Robert said, this is a draft for discussion. We'll act on it in a future meeting. So your input is really helpful. So we're a public body, and so we have Utah Open Public Meeting Law. We're also a public broadcaster, and we have open meeting requirements as being a public broadcaster. We want to hear from the public since we're a public entity. So this is really, it's a policy, but it's more of a procedure. If members of the public want to speak with the board, we didn't have a procedure on how to go about doing that. So you'll see in the document, there's a numbered procedure here that we'll have time on every agenda, how members of the public would be able to address the board and so on. So it's really just to make sure that we have a procedure in place. This has been reviewed by the AG's office. They provided input, especially for Utah law, but we'll do another thorough review with legal counsel before it comes before the board again. So I'm open to any questions or if you have feedback about this.
Thank you, Lauren. I would just add, I appreciate Laura. She has done a great job of really talking and speaking with several different authorities related to laws and policies on public comments and public meetings. I believe this policy has been very well researched. Laura, you have compared and discussed this with representatives for the Utah Board of Education, as well as representatives from the Attorney General's office. So again, this is a draft, but there's been quite a bit of time taken to put the necessary pieces together. As this will become a standing part of this meeting, I think it's appropriate that we receive input from members of the board. What are your thoughts? Do you see things in this draft policy? One of the things that I noticed that I've already spoken with Laura about is in the procedure portion, just making sure that we emphasize that public comments are members of the public are to prearrange that through a process. It's not an open agenda time where anyone can just speak up. There's a process that will be followed for individuals to sign up to be able to make public comment, and that will be part of the procedural process. Other comments, thoughts from members of the board about this draft policy?
Chair, this is Patty. Thank you again, Laura, for addressing this and being very proactive in this approach. We all want to be able to have public comment and really being able to know how the public feels and what that means in the work that we do here. One of the things that I had talked with Laura about previously as well is being able to put in there a way for those that didn't get within that. Each person will make a public comment. I think it's on number 3 to 2 minutes. But if they're not able to come and the schedule's already full, a way to communicate to them to put something in writing that would be distributed to the board prior to. This being proactive in this approach helps the board not be biased in their approach to having public comment, having people come to speak, what that looks like, and really sets those clear parameters that have been necessary, especially now. I know that some of our school districts, you know, Ray and Ben, you can speak to what that looks like if there's not a clear set procedure that's out there. And it really protects the public. It protects the employees in moving forward and trying their best to do their jobs as well. So I don't know if Ben and Dave, if you have anything to add to it as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Patty, and appreciate those comments. I do think with what Robert was saying, it's important to have a formal process for people to sign up and then a way for them to still continue to communicate their thoughts if they can't get on the agenda or if we run out of time. The time limit set is really good. The other thing is I'd maybe suggest that we don't allow people to share minutes. Sometimes people come in and they say, here's my 2 minutes, but I want to give it to this person. And so there shouldn't be any sharing of minutes. Or if someone wants to combine a specific topic and do have a speaker that they will represent a group, maybe it's a 5-minute thing or a 4-minute thing to get a little more time. I don't know what that really looks like, but sometimes you may have a spokesman for a group of people rather than hear the same thing over and over. It's kind of nice to have a procedural process to follow if there is a specific agenda item that they want to discuss and have a spokesman for the group. But that looks really good. I appreciate all your work on it, Laura.
I agree with Ben on that as well. There are some topics that could be either side and argued for quite a while. And if there's a policy, it just puts that through the process and makes sure that it doesn't occupy our total meeting.
David, did you have anything to add to it as well?
No, I agree with both the other superintendents. The only other thing I might say is if we're looking at things where it's a group or a topic, there ought to be a way to formalize getting on the agenda for more of a consideration of time.
And as a
instead of a public comment section.
Yeah. And as a final on that, we've been looking at ways to make sure that in allowing for public comment, we're also not breaking other laws when it comes to, I think it's 53G dash, not great on all of it, bullying, hazing, abusive conduct, those types of things when we're talking to about, you know, staff members and whatnot. So making sure that if someone's being named, you know, to maybe really follow up on what that might look like in law. That's something that we're looking at as a board to make sure we're not crossing other lines while fulfilling one statute itself.
Thank you. Other comments, questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It looks very straightforward. It's been a good discussion and it looks like it's off to a good start here. Just curious if we had requests for public comment.
I asked a similar question this morning as I met with Laura and Ray about participants that actually view the YouTube link as well. I'd be very interested in knowing from meeting to meeting how many participants are not only who are just viewing our meeting. Laura and Ray, have you had any requests or to address Jared's question?
The only one that I'm aware of was back when we had the group that wanted to speak to the board about the about EBSCO. And I'm not aware of any other group that has requested that. I did find out your question on how many on average view over YouTube, and it's anywhere from 3 to 12 people on average would be viewing, depending upon what topics are on the agenda. Laura, have you had requests?
We haven't, just the ones that were in 2018. And I did want to also add, because I forgot to say it before, the council meetings are also public meetings. So this procedure would be the same for if the council meets and how they accept public comment and hear public comment.
I just really appreciate, as a board, looking this and putting something in place. As we have discussed, the opportunity for the public to speak is something that is very important. We're a public entity, and being able to listen and hear from members of the public is certainly supported by this board to have a process and procedure in place to be able to do that. I think will just be critical. Laura, I'm assuming you've heard some things this morning about some suggestions and additions, tweaks to the policy. I believe you mentioned to me that before this comes back to the board for final approval, you will send it through the AG's office again and make sure that it has the full support of the Attorney General's office and that it's consistent with state law and policy.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else from the board on this? Okay, this will then the next time we see this, then it will most likely be part of an action item that we will consider as a board. So thank you again to Laura and her team. We will now move on to the reports section of our agenda, and we will receive our executive director report from Ray.
All right, thank you. I just have a few items for an update for you. This year, we had several contracts, circuit contracts that were up for renewal. We had 500 that were up for renewal. So we've gone through the RFP process, and we're right towards the end of reviewing those applications, and we've had really good participation. We have 18 vendors that have applied to be able to provide circuits for us. So that's a really good response, and it shows good support for the system, the way that we operate, and the way that we do things. It's I think really to the point, and it shows that we have a good working relationship with them as well. We're in the process of finalizing the digital teaching and learning inventory. We started this back in 2015 when we collaborated with the State Board of Education on the digital teaching and learning project. And this survey, we have every single school, K-12, including charters, who provide the data of what they have and what they've been doing with their technology. And it's we do it every other year. So 2015, 2017, 2019, now it's 2021. And we work with Connected Nation is the group that we work with. The nice thing about this inventory is it gives us baseline data. It gives information to the districts. It gives information that we can share with legislators to show the progress that we're making in the state and how we're utilizing technology and how students are benefiting. So as that report gets finalized, we will be sharing that with you in a future board meeting. We are also at the end of contract on content filtering. And I mentioned filtering earlier. That's why we were requesting the additional funding there. But we started in early 2021. We put together an evaluation advisory committee. We went through the RFP stage. We're looking at the responses that will come in, and we'll finalize looking at those in mid-December. We'll make awards in early January, and then we'll start implementing beginning in February with the deadline for implementation being the end of June. So we're moving forward with that and being able to find the tools that are necessary to be able to do a good job with content filtering. And then the last thing I have as an update is on my executive director's report. You'll see that we do have the information booklet is posted online. It kind of looks a little funny when you're trying to read down through because they're two, it's a double-paged booklet. What we will do, I'll ask Denise if she will send hard copy of our infrastructure map and our legislative funding request and the information booklet. Since we haven't met in person, we normally hand them out to you so you have multiple copies that you can share with your local legislators. And we'll put those in the mail so that you can have them readily available. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all that I have at this point.
Great. Thank you, Ray. Any questions or comments for Ray?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair. These look really good. I think they'll be useful tools for communicating with the legislature. Maybe for consideration in next year's, where we're indicating we have 16 institutions, including 8 technical, or 16 institutions and 8 technical colleges. I wonder if that would be more clear just to say 16 institutions. We already have a footnote down there that says that it includes technical colleges. That might be a little bit more clear. So it's not 16 plus 8. And then on the mission for the system of higher education, that appears to have come from our previous mission statement. It's been revised in we can find it in the 2021 annual report. It's quite similar, but it also looks like we've coupled the previous USHE mission elements with the previous UTEC mission elements on there. So if we can just go to the current plan, it'll be very similar. And so this is still useful this year, but it might more currently reflect the missions.
Thanks, Jared. Rich will take note of that and make sure that we do make those changes.
And then also in the budget by customer on page 9, you've got a section there for UCAT. So
okay,
it just needs to be combined with higher eds. So it looks very good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else for Ray? Okay, thank you, Ray. In your agenda, you will see that our 2 advisory boards will be actually meeting later this week, both tomorrow as well as Friday. So we will look to our advisory advisory councils to provide reports to us when we meet again in February. So with that, we'll move to something that was previously mentioned in the meeting, and we'll turn to Laura to give a report on EBSCO monitoring.
Sure, thank you. So for those of you that were part of the board in 2018, the board had requested that we report regularly on how we're monitoring the use of the databases for K-12 in EBSCO. And so the website that's linked in your board materials, let me quickly get to that. The website here that's linked is has been kept up to date. Initially, we did monthly reports, and then after the first 2 years, you as a board said that quarterly reports were sufficient. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. And we've been including this as an agenda item forever. So hopefully it's familiar. I'm going to pull up one of the reports quickly just to walk you through. The format has been pretty much the same during the whole time. If you can see the PDF report, would you just give me a thumbs up so I know that you're looking at it? Okay, great. Thank you. So these are the reports that we get from EBSCO. This is for the previous quarter. Next quarter ends at the end of this month, and then we'll be able to post it. We keep track of how many support tickets are requested directly of EBSCO, and usually they're password or authentication related. There were no tickets that were reported in regards to content. The filter is still in place for all of the K-12, so this is just letting you know that those searches through the K-12 instance continue to be monitored. And then they create a visual word cloud for us. So this is a word cloud of the most frequent searches that were in the previous quarter. And then they also include the number. So there were 2.7 million searches in the previous 3 months. And then they list the top 100 search terms. This is kind of interesting to see how things change depending on current events or curriculum cycles. It's interesting to see what researchers are searching on. So these are the top 100 terms that are being searched on. And then sometimes they'll do a comparison with one of the larger districts, Granite School District, or one of the other districts to show how state data may compare to district data. And then we meet with them regularly, with the EBSCO staff regularly, if there are any other issues. So just want to make sure that you are aware of that as that we're continuing to do those at the board's request.
Great, thank you, Laura. Any questions for Laura about the EBSCO report?
I just wanted to share that I've told Laura that this is very helpful for us to be able to pass along to our state board members and local board members as well. So thank you for creating this. And I find it very fascinating as well with those search terms and whatnot. So not only is it interesting, it's very informative and useful in the educational setting.
It was very useful, and this is probably a useless question, but curious what people are looking for with Tigers and Dante Alighieri, but
I was wondering the same thing, Jared.
See, and I was wondering why Ted Bundy all of a sudden became a topic to research.
Right across from Christopher Columbus.
That's right.
Very interesting.
Hey,
I just had one question on this really quickly. Do we have any similar way of monitoring other resources like the Gale library or other things that we have? And do we need to be looking at that in a similar way? I'm really pleased to see these reports and be able to refer to them as well and show people that we're monitoring that for the K-12 arena. But I'm just wondering about our other third-party vendors that we have content from.
Good question. We have not had Gail provide those reports to us. If that's a recommendation from you all, then we can certainly work with them to do something similar.
I hate to put another task on the staff, but I really think in this day and age we need to be looking at what our third party providers are offering online and make sure that that's all being monitored in some way.
Okay, I'll work with Gail and find out what that entails.
hey, anything else?
I just want to thank Laura too. She's done a great job with this and following up with us over the last few years. So Thank you.
I'm impressed when you go to that website that we have all of those links. Just it really is a testament to the efforts of UETN to be transparent, to respond to public need, and to be able to provide reports. I think that website is very impressive with the amount of work that goes on in this type of reporting. So thank you to the UETN team. Okay, the next agenda item, you have just a brief report in your agenda. The UETN Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Working Group continues to meet and work, and there's an update in your agenda on some recent things that they have been doing, as well as discussing. We had not planned on having a presentation for this. It's more of just an agenda item to update the board, to let them know that this working group is continuing to meet. But I will pause to see if board members have any questions concerning the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Working Group. Okay, we appreciate the efforts of that working group. It's such an important area, and we want to make sure that UETN is well represented, and discussions are ongoing. So we just as a message from me back to the UETN team, we would look forward to additional reports from this working group. We will now move into the last portion of our meeting, and I believe, Ray, it is movie time. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Okay.
I've got those videos pulled up, Ray, if you'd like me to share them.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was looking for them. Go ahead. Is that James or Tim?
This is Tim.
Okay, Tim, if you would go ahead. Let's see, I need to not share anymore then, right? Stop share. Okay, there you go.
While Tim's pulling that up, maybe I could give a little bit of context. So this is the first of a new series, Humans at UETN, kind of like the Humans of New York effort that's been going on. And this was created by staff. Our video team produced it, and you'll be able to see the first staff member that's been featured. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. It's about 8.5 minutes. And then immediately after that, we have a 30-second holiday greeting video that's available. So here we go.
Often when we're working in the remote areas of the state, we almost have to calculate one day to get our stuff together and get on site, and then at least a day to do the work that we're doing, and then a day to get home. So depending on how remote the area is that we're working, and typically I'm in those remote areas, a lot of my day can be spent just getting there. I am Scott Larson. I am a data transport engineer here at the Utah Education and Telehealth Network. I went to school at Southern Utah University, and when I was there, I had a friend who got me involved actually operating cameras for the distance learning classes. I was going to school to be a network administrator, and I quickly fell in love with the technology that UEN uses and decided this was more where I wanted to be than in a corner office without windows. My primary responsibilities involve the microwave radio system, the fiber optic network, and the power and UPS backups that we have around the state. And those microwave radios are a way to be able to distribute the internet to the schools. My primary responsibilities is not accessible to do that. But to do that, we also have to have line of sight to be able to see one radio to the other. So when I go onto a mountaintop, it is for a repeater site that is able to see the two locations where the signal's coming from and where the signal's going to. Often case the district office to the high school. And if there's a problem within that radio, I'm replacing cards or troubleshooting a failure within the equipment there on the radios. One of the unique things with this job is the ability to use some of the skills that I have done as a hobby versus things that I would normally think would be a job-related skill. Currently at UETN, our safety policy has two levels of climbers. One is a primary level climber, the other is a secondary level climber. In order to be a primary level climber, we require a SPRAT certification. That's S-P-R-A-T, which stands for the Society for Professional Rope Access Technicians. That is a training that allows you and teaches you to not only work while connected to ropes and being suspended in the air, but also to rescue someone who has had problems and is stuck at a height and be able to get them to ground. The communication towers normally run anywhere from about 60 to 100 feet on average. In the case of Utah State being our tallest tower, that one is about 250 feet tall. And so we need the ability to get up to where the antenna level is on those radios. And so using skills that most people would associate with rappelling or rock climbing and being able to get up and work with our hands free, but still being secured and safely able to function at that level. Whenever there's a problem, whenever things don't work and aren't working, it becomes imperative that we get those circuits up and running. There's so many services that are provided through the internet connection into the schools that when it's not working, it really almost makes it impossible for the schools to operate. One example of that is even their phone systems are running over the network. And so if their phone service is not working, they literally are not allowed to hold school. So it's imperative that we get there quickly, and we resolve any issues that are taking place. Here in the northern part of the state, almost completely the northern part of the state, we live in a very urban area where things are close together, and it's very easy for a communication company to put fiber in the ground and be able to support a large area with that fiber. But most of the state of Utah is made up of rural communities that are often 20 or more miles from the nearest other community. And then those services are being provided specifically for that community. UETN, as part of its charge and part of what it tries to do for those communities, by getting the fiber to the school, we're not only providing a circuit for that school, but we are providing services into that community that would not otherwise be available, that can be used by other services and other businesses in that area. Some of the projects that we work on, it is amazing the expanse that they tend to take on. And we may go into an area on a limited project and think that we are just providing services to one or two locations, or maybe even a specific level of service to those locations. And we quickly realize that that level of service increases, the needs increase to those areas. And so quite often, as in the San Juan project, right now, we are finding that their needs have increased beyond what we've been able to provide. So we are currently looking to provide increased levels of service and increasing the equipment and the services that we're providing down there to be able to meet the needs of the teachers and the students down there. One of the things about working for UETN, and specifically working with the field operations team, is how well we tend to work together. The skill sets that the field team has are so varied and so diverse that it's really interesting to see where each of our strengths can come into play in projects. And the more that you have involved, the more those strengths help out. And that extends even into the districts. As we implement our Safe Climb, we have worked very closely with the San Juan School District, who now has 3 individuals with the professional rope access certifications that can be primary climbers and we can work directly with when we're in those areas. So being able to pull those resources, not only from within our organization, but from within those organizations we work with, is really key to a project going smoothly and coming together well. The most rewarding part of my job, and I don't want to say it's unique to my job, but it would be within the organization, but in some ways is more unique to me or more specific to me, is the personal relationships that I have directly with the districts and the people with I work. Quite often, I give my personal cell phone number and things to those that I'm working with, and they know that if there's an issue, they call me directly. They're not calling in to the main line or whatever else. I will get the call that says, Scott, I'm having this issue. Is this something you can help me through, or do you have time to come out and help me with that? And those types of connections with the communities and with the schools and the districts, I think is something that's hard to get when you're not on site and you're not right there working with them. And those relationships are the most rewarding part of my job.
Applause. That is right. Both of those were just great. Thank you, Ray, and to the entire team. Excellent.
I just want to add comment. When I saw that video, I gained a whole new amount of respect for those individuals. We have such great employees here at UETN, and they all go all out. They get the training they need. They really care about the services they provide. They take great pride in what they do. And this one on Scott, you'll see more in the future. We want to continue to highlight our employees and show what they do, because I don't think a lot of people really know what happens behind the scenes.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. That's great. We look forward to more. That will be fun to review those additional videos as they aboard. And again, thank you to the entire UETN team for their great work. As part of our next agenda item, there are just some links for some interesting articles that are being brought to the board's attention. You're free to click on the links and read those articles. Ray or Laura, anything to add about the articles that are listed in the agenda?
I thought they were great. Laura, I think, picked those. Some of them talk specifically about UETN and the relationship we have in working with others. I thought they were excellent. Laura?
Me too. I don't have anything more to add.
Okay.
Great. Well, we are nearing the end of our agenda. I'd just like to maybe open it up to the board. There any questions or comments that you have or anything that you would like to share?
Any news on the 400 gig link?
I'm sorry, what, Steve?
Any news on the 400 gig link?
Steve, this is Jim.
Yeah, Jim.
We're working with Internet 2, and it should be completed by the end of the month. In fact, they reached out to me just this week to get Rich Finlanson's information so that they could do a press release and move this forward. But we're one of the first 5, and we're on the new platform. We have all the cards. I think that there are some of these other 5 that weren't quite as prepared, and they don't want one to go before all 5 are ready. And I think that's what the delay is right now, is getting all 5 of the first 2 committed to do this with all of the hardware and all of the configuration that needs to be done so we can all move together.
And where are the connection points? Where will it point to point go?
Well, right now we'll just go from the downtown data center to the level 3 connection, and that's where we'll interface with Internet 2. And from there, they go out. We're a 3-way connection, so we go to the Bay Area, to Seattle, and over to Denver. So we're and we don't have the ability right now. So we could go to 2 400 gig links, but we just don't have. We have the hardware, but we don't have the connectivity from Las Vegas to St. George to get us 400 gig. We're using a carrier service there with just 100 gigs, so that will have to be taken out to RFP, and we'll have to figure out how to move to that 400 gig link. But it will be available to us. But to start out with initially, we'll just have the one link that goes to Salt Lake.
So Jim, this is Mike. You haven't seen the RFP responses yet, but we do have a couple of quotes for those circuits. So I'll share them with you as soon as we have all the information.
Mike, I knew you were on it, but I appreciate you jumping in.
Absolutely, you bet.
Thanks. Other comments, questions?
Hi, Chair. This is Rick Gaisford. I think I'd be remiss if I did just say something. I've been observing. I observe UEN a lot with my role at the State Board of Education, and just the incredible work. And just wanted to thank the staff and the technical side, the instructional side, the broadcast side, and all of those areas through just the great work and support they are to our schools. When I meet with my colleagues from around the country, they're very envious of what we have, and they say, they'll often say, well, you could talk about anything, and they know about UEN because I talk about UEN all the time with them, and how fortunate we are to have the great support, and the great amount of hours that go into some of the projects and that, and I just noted a couple of things, of just some of the things in just the last few months of how they've supported schools with they've held a tech summit for training for our IT people across the state, the security conference, CENTCON, and how they support that. Ray mentioned the RFI and RF, for filtering, and the RFP for filtering. I don't think anybody realizes how many hours staff has put into that. When we have a solution, we can be assured that it's the best available technology at the time, and that. The State Board of Education approved a contract for another software program, and UEN stepped right up to help support that and provide training. And then, with the help with the inventory that's been going on right now, it's going to give us, we will have data that no other state will have, because we have that inventory from 2 years ago. We have that inventory now. It's right. We will really be able to see some of the, what happened during this COVID pandemic. But thank you to the staff and for all their great work, and for how they support all levels of education in the state of Utah.
Thank you, Rick. Others? Well, let me just add then at this time of reflection at the end of 2021, as we have appropriately thanked the UETN staff and leadership team for just a fantastic year and all of their efforts. I'd like to personally thank my board member colleagues. Thank you all for your participation this year. Thank you for your service on this board, for your efforts in participating in our meetings, for your advocacy. It just truly is very much appreciated. It's very recognized. That's been hard to do as we've been meeting remotely. In times past, we've been able to be in person and greet each other and really recognize the efforts of our board members. Unfortunately, we've not been able to do that as effectively the last couple of years, but please know that your efforts and your membership is very much appreciated. I certainly wish you all happy holidays and hope that 2022 will be another successful year. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.
Thanks, Robert.
So much.